Hey guys, we're back again with ratio reviews, but it is not always the same kind of ratios. We've seen simplifying ratios where, just like simplifying a fraction, we divided by the highest common factor. We've seen sharing by ratios where we had to divide a total value into some number of parts and then share those parts out by the proportion given by the ratio. Today we're looking at equivalent ratios, which is not equivalent to sharing by ratios. It's not the same thing at all, although it's very easy to confuse these kinds of questions. Equivalent ratios are similar to simplifying ratios because they represent a ratio that has the same proportions as the other ratio. Just like simplifying a ratio, we're finding a simpler ratio that has the equivalent proportions as the given ratio. But this is still a very difficult and more advanced kind of ratio question. So let's get into the theory of it, and then we'll do an example, and then I'll give you an exercise. Okay, so equivalent ratio problems. Again, you have to look out for the wording. Be very careful with the wording. In this case, you will also be given a ratio, just like sharing by ratios. They'll give you a ratio, and then they give you another value. That value is not the total. That value is equivalent to one side of the ratio. So first, you're going to need to write the ratio they give you. Make sure you give it a nice title so you're clear about what each side of the ratio represents. We're going to line up the ratios, labeling each side. Then you're going to find the scale factor, which takes you from the value of one of your ratios to the other. Now, I know that's difficult to visualize, so I'll give you an example to show you what I mean by that. But visualize this. You've got a ratio above where the next ratio is supposed to go. And you want to make sure that the given value is on the correct side of the ratio. Now, we use a scale factor to find the other side of the equivalent ratio. We know that the starting ratio needed to be multiplied by some value to give the ratio below. We have to figure out what that value was and find out the other side of that ratio. Now, I know this is a bit confusing. Maybe you want to have a look at the example first and then come back and copy this theory. So here we've got Davide and Freddie, who are sharing some chocolates in the ratio of 5 to 8. They're sharing some number of chocolates. Notice that we didn't tell you how many chocolates, but we are telling you how many Freddie gets. Freddie got 40 chocolates. How much did Davide get? And then we can work out how many chocolates there were altogether. So let's start with the ratio that they gave us. They gave us a ratio of 5 to 8. And remember that in the question, they always give the ratio in the same order as the information. So Davide was first. Davide gets the 5 parts, and Freddie is second. He gets the 8 parts. So I label my ratio in words. I write my ratio clearly, the one that they gave me. And then from the information, I'm given one more value. And that's not the total value, that's Freddie's value. So having labeled this, I can clearly see that the 40 needs to go underneath Freddie, the 40 needs to go underneath the 8, and that's one side of the ratio. I don't know what goes on the other side. That's what I need to work out. How many did Davide get if Freddie got 40? Right? If Freddie only got 8, Davide got 5. But if Freddie got 40, Davide should get more as well. So the next question is, how much more? What is the scale factor? The scale factor is the number that we multiply by. So 8 multiplied by something gives me 40. Now, I know what I need to multiply 8 by to get 40, but if you struggle with this, you can always try just doing 40 divided by 8. Find that answer, it's 5, and then try for yourself. Does 5 times 8 make 40? And it does. So I'm going to multiply by 5. If the 8 got multiplied by 5 to make 40, Davide should have his value multiplied by 5 as well. So he should have 5 times 5, which is 25. So if Freddie gets 40, Davide gets 25. That seems fair because originally Freddie got 8. That number got multiplied by 5. So originally Davide got 5. That number was multiplied by 5. It maintains the same proportion. Right. So, answer, Davide got 25 chocolates. Again, go back to the question to make sure that we have answered it fully. Part B, how many chocolates did they share all together? They're not asking us what's the ratio. They're asking me how much is that together? 25 and 40 chocolates. That makes 65 chocolates altogether. Okay, so you might want to go back and copy the note now, or take a pause and finish copying this example, but we're going to go on to the exercise in a minute. Right, so here you've got an exercise, and these are all equivalent ratio problems, so that should make it easier for you. On an exam, keep in mind that the difficult thing is reading the question carefully and identifying what kind of ratio question is it. Is it a simplifying ratio? Is it a sharing by ratio? Or is it an equivalent ratio question? So be careful as you're reading through this to make sure that you would have identified it as an equivalent ratio question. They gave you a ratio, and they gave you a value that belongs on one side of the ratio. You need to find the other side of the ratio. They did not give you a total value. Okay, so once again, I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute. In 1 minute, the answer is going to come up. If you don't feel that's enough time, you can always hit pause and take as much time as you need. Okay, that was your minute. If you need a bit more time to finish off and you don't quite want to see the answers yet, just hit pause. But here come the answers. Right, it may not seem like a lot, but they are more difficult questions. So mark what you've got, and if you need more time, you can always go back.